Naturally Occurring Radioactive Materials Safety Program. Purpose. Plaas Incorporated is constantly striving to improve the safety of our employees, customers, and community. To further that goal, we have developed and have implemented this program specific to naturally occurring radioactive materials safely. Through this program, we hope to assure that all company employees performing job tasks in which a potential naturally occurring radioactive material, NORM, exposure could occur, are protected. Compliance with this program is mandatory and is applicable to all company employees who work in an environment where naturally occurring radioactive materials may be present in any amount. Failure to comply will result in disciplinary action and is grounds for terminations. Definitions. Dose means the quantity of ionizing radiation absorbed per unit of mass by the body or any portion of the body. When the provisions in this section specify a dose during a period of time, the dose is the total quantity of radiation absorbed per unit of mass by the body or any portion of the body during such period of time. Several different units of dose are in current use. Rad means a measure of the dose of any ionizing radiation to body tissues in terms of the energy absorbed per unit of mass of the tissue. 1 rad is the dose corresponding to the absorption of 100 ergos per gram of tissue. 1 mrad, mrad, equals 0.001 rad. Radiation includes alpha rays, beta rays, gamma rays, X-rays, neutrons, high-speed electrons, high-speed protons, and other atomic particles, but such term does not include sound or radio waves or visible light or infrared or ultraviolet light. Radioactive material means any material which emits by spontaneous nuclear disintegration, corpuscular or electromagnetic emanations. REM means a measure of the dose of any ionizing radiation to body tissue in terms of its estimated biological effect relative to a dose of 1 roentgen R of X-rays. 1 mrem, mrem equals 0.001 rem. The relation of the rem to other dose units depends upon the biological effect under consideration and upon the conditions for irradiation. Each of the following is considered to be equivalent to a dose of 1 rem. Restricted area means any area access to which is controlled by the employer for purposes of protection of individuals from exposure to radiation or radioactive materials. Unrestricted area means any area access to which is not controlled by the employer for purposes of protection of individuals from exposure to radiation or radioactive materials. Responsibilities. The program administrator will issue and implement this program and ensure that it meets applicable requirements. Provide annual training for NORM to all employees who might be exposed. Implement engineering and work practice controls to prevent exposure to NORM. Provide appropriate personal protective equipment for exposed employees. Managers and supervisors will know and understand the hazards of NORM, comply with all engineering and work practice controls in place to prevent exposure to NORM, ensure the availability and use of appropriate personal protective equipment for exposed employees. Employers should be aware of owners' contingency plan provisions. Employers must be informed where exposure to NORM is possible in a host facility and aware of additional plant safety rules. Employees will comply with all aspects of this NORM safety program, attend scheduled training when required, use engineering and work practice controls in place to prevent exposure to NORM, use personal protective equipment as necessary to prevent exposure. Program activities. Exposure to natural occurring radioactive materials occurs in many industries and can pose a significant danger. If at all possible, Plaas Incorporated employees are instructed to contact the program administrator if it is determined that employees will be exposed to naturally occurring radioactive materials. Exposures protection. Exposures may not be immediately noticeable during the initial review of site conditions by the job site foreman. The facility administrator is required to inform Plaas Incorporated potential hazards on the site. This includes naturally occurring radioactive materials and technological enhanced naturally occurring radioactive materials. Precautions are to be taken when there is a possibility of exposure. Precautions, protections are divided into 3 areas. Time. The length of exposure may be limited, thereby eliminating the potential hazard. As an example, a 5-minute exposure to sunlight is in fact a safe exposure to radiation, whereas a 16-hour unprotected exposure to sunlight is not. Distance. Employee work may be relocated away from potential exposure, thereby reducing or eliminating the hazard. Shielding. A shield may be erected to eliminate or reduce exposures. Personal hygiene is a factor in precautions of post-exposure. Personal protective equipment may be needed in very rare cases. Nuclides. Various types of nuclides may be encountered. The host employer will disclose the information during the initial site meeting with the job site foreman. Alternatively, the information may be disclosed to the program administrator or project manager, who will in turn convey the information to the job site foreman prior to the commencement of work. Over 60 radionuclides, radioactive elements, can be found in nature, and they can be placed into three general categories. Primordial. From before the creation of the Earth, primordial radionuclides are left over from when the world and the universe were created. They are typically long-lived, with half-lives often on the order of hundreds of millions of years. Radionuclides that exist for more than 30 half-lives are not measurable. The progeny or decay products of the long-lived radionuclides are also in this heading. Human-produced. Enhanced or formed during human actions, minor amounts compared to natural, humans have used radioactivity for 100 years and through its use added to the natural inventory. The amounts are small compared to the natural amounts discussed above, and due to the shorter half-lives of many of the nuclides, have seen a marked decrease since the halting of above-ground testing of nuclear weapons. Cosmogenic, formed as a result of cosmic ray interactions. Cosmic radiation permeates all of space, the source being primarily outside of our solar system. The radiation is in many forms, from high-speed heavy particles to high-energy photons and mutons. The upper atmosphere interacts with many of the cosmic radiations and produces radioactive nuclides. They can have long half-lives, but the majority have shorter half-lives than the primordial nuclides. Testing. The job site foreman is responsible for ensuring testing is completed. Types of testing will be consistent with that of the host employer. Testing may be conducted by qualified Plaas Incorporated personnel or by plant personnel. Testing results will be compared to levels established by the facility. Preventing exposure. Proper control of exposure to naturally occurring radioactive materials is the responsibility of both the host employer, Plaas Incorporated, and the employee. When the exposures cannot be eliminated, as outlined above, Plaas Incorporated employees will prevent exposure through the use of personal protective equipment. The program administrator shall be consulted on a case-by-case basis to determine if the appropriate personal protective equipment is suitable to each potential exposure. Employee information and training. Annual training will be conducted per the Plaas Incorporated Safety Program. Information and training for normal and emergency situations will be given to all employees who may be exposed to naturally occurring radioactive materials. The training program will inform employees of the following: the characteristics, possible sources, and hazards of norm, proper use of the norm detection methods, proper use and maintenance of personal protective equipment, demonstrated proficiency in using such equipment is required, proper use of safety equipment, proper use and operation of all norm monitoring systems.